Good afternoon to everybody and welcome to the 158th edition of the Global Weather Report, live here from our Vogan Weather HQ. I'm back. Last week it was from Kirkintilloch, looking at the first winter update. The second winter update, by the way, will be coming at the end of this month, so stay tuned. There may be a few interesting adjustments made to what was said way back last Saturday evening. So how is everybody doing on this Sunday? Conditions still remain a little bit blustery and unsettled out there compared to what it was back yesterday. It was a pretty wild day, and then back on Saturday, obviously everything was kicking off with regards to the Storm Amy, which certainly packed a punch, I must admit. Plenty of tree damage, even some structural damage reported in such places as Glasgow and points just to the northeast of that in Cumbernauld. There was plenty of other damage here and there as well across parts of Ireland, Northern Ireland as well. We did see a new October low pressure of 947.9 millibars, which surpasses the previous record set at both that was recorded at Balkans Sound in Shetland, and the previous record was 950 millibars set back in October of 1988. Our very own Paul James is on the first person to be on the live chat this afternoon. Good afternoon to Paul. Hope you're well, my friend. Enjoying your weekend so far. We've got our very own Braemar, Ballard, D-side and Donside Weather. Good afternoon, Chris. Good to see yourself. Richard Gray. And we've also got Paul Farwell. So what is everybody saying this afternoon? Chris says, hello, Mark. Paul says, good afternoon, Mark. Or afternoon, Mark, should I say. Same thing. Richard Gray saying, afternoon, Mark. It's been windy in Devon, but nothing like you guys have had in Scotland. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Richard. Yeah, it certainly was wild stuff. We will look at some of the numbers in a little second. Paul saying, good afternoon, Mark. Cloudy and breezy in Swindon with broken sunshine. The sun's certainly trying to come out here this afternoon. We still have a bit of a breeze out there. Some showers around also. Good afternoon to Frog's Eggs Matthew, and also to David Vogan. Dad saying, all good here, quite a cold day. Only damage for me was the whirly clothes thing snapped in two. Not so good. Time to get a new one, I would imagine, Dad. Carol saying, we lost a sheet off our big farm shed roof near Stirling. Says Carol. Callum Snowball, good afternoon to yourself. Good afternoon on this breezy afternoon. However, a last hurrah from summer tomorrow in the northeast. Yeah, with a southwesterly breeze, you can sometimes get the warmest temperatures. The month started off pretty warm. Up here at the house, 19.9 Celsius, and a few days later, we were struggling to get much above 11 Celsius. So big autumn swings going on. And that is often the case. Have you seen some of the images that have been coming out of the Balkan region? Record snow and cold. Here, unusually low-level snowfall in parts of Serbia, for example. We will look at that in today's video. We'll also look at Siberia, where the snow and cold is growing. So yeah, let me just see if there's anybody else. What millibars was Storm Arwen, says Chris. Let's have a quick Google of that. Storm Arwen. Don't know why it's come up as Storm Arwen dates, but just bear with a second here, Chris, and we'll try and pull up the what the pressure in Storm Arwen was. So obviously that was back in the 25th through the 27th of November 2021. We had a maximum gust at Settle of 110 miles per hour. It's pretty impressive actually when you think about that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything where it gives you what the central pressure of Arwen was, Chris. For some reason, it's not giving me that, which is a wee bit disappointing. What was right? I meant right. Most pressure 9. Lowest pressure was 998 millibars. That doesn't seem right. But then it was a very unusual one, wasn't it, where we had extreme winds of a northerly direction. Lindsay and I were actually on the Outer Hebrides when that storm kicked in. We've seen some unusual damage as well because of the direction of the wind. Obviously, you get the strongest winds out of a west or southwesterly direction when you've got lows, deep lows coming in off the Atlantic. But it was actually the gradient in pressure between the system that was over the North Sea and an incredibly strong area of high pressure. It was a very cold storm as well, if you can remember. But yeah, it was essentially the tight gradient in pressure between the high out over the Atlantic and the low that was over the North Sea. And then obviously you had a northeasterly wind that was in excess of, I'm sure the official reading at one point was 99 miles per hour in a forest area of Northumberland. I'm sure I can remember that being the case. So let me just see here who else is on. Good afternoon to Lindsay, who is next door. We've also got we've got Frogslace Matthew saying looking forward to the winter. Could be interesting this year for coal lovers. Yep, there's certainly a lot of interesting things to look at, Matthew, with regards to the drivers. We're starting to see an interesting change in the SSTs of the North Pacific, which is quite interesting. Found 979, which would make more sense. That 998 doesn't make sense. Chris is saying 979 with regards to that storm Arwen. I've got the information on my website, but it would take too long for me to try and find out the exact details. We need bone chilling of -20, says Jamie's World. Any beast from the east, says Jamie's World. Certainly not on the horizon yet, Jamie, but you never know with time. So we've got Hazel saying, hello, it's nice to see you again. I hope you're well, watching from Yorkshire in the UK. Thank you, Hazel, for tuning in. Good to see you. We've got 28 concurrent viewers at the moment. Hit that like button. Let's myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. So, interesting piece of information come out of Facebook yesterday from a Facebook page here in the village. We are Evanton, and somebody had written, we've got a wind farm up the back here, up in behind a wooded area, quite an exposed location, it has to be said. But apparently there was a wind gust of 115 miles per hour that was recorded from one of the wind turbines, which is believable, but pretty remarkable actually when you think about it. So just literally an 11-mile drive, about an 11-minute drive, should I say. It's about 4 miles from here where there was a wind gust of 115 miles per hour. Now, if we look at this from Highland Weather here, this is from Lee's page. Terrific source of information if you happen to live in the Highland region. And we did see a wind gust from Storm Amy of 136 miles per hour on top of Cairngorm, and Elgol in Skye was recording a gust of 112. Now, these are a private network of stations, so these are not official Met Office recordings, but nevertheless, some very fascinating stuff. I do know that we had wind gusts of 76 at Inverness Airport. We also had a gust of 84 miles per hour. Let me just pull my own Twitter page up here and I'll give you some information of the strongest winds that were recorded from Amy. So I created a thread on Twitter, and it was quite interesting in Inverness back on Friday night at around 5:30 p.m. Pressure was down at 966 millibars, which is incredibly low. We had sun shining, we had not a breath of wind when I started my shift to drive down to Glasgow. So at that point where this was the scene from my work, the pressure in the area was 966 millibars. We already had a pressure off the South Uist, for example, into the 950s and millibars. And this was at a point where the weather was really quite severe across the central portions of Scotland. Ireland, Northern Ireland was seeing some very impressive gusts. And then as the night wore on, this was me on Saturday morning while I was eating my breakfast. The power was cut here at the house. Many thousands of homes were without power, it has to be said, at that point in time. But some key gusts of wind, we recorded 96 at Tyree, McGilligan and Malin Head. McGilligan being in the northwest of Northern Ireland recorded Northern Ireland's highest October wind gust. Malin Head recorded the second highest wind gust in October for the Republic of Ireland. 87 miles per hour at 10 was a new all-time record. That station came into existence in 1994. So a relative period of record, 84 mile per hour gust at Loch Liscarnock. So some very impressive gusts of wind. Now this was sent to me from Dan Harris. This was a tweet that he put out showing that the sites that recorded their highest October wind gusts on record, and Tane Range and McGilligan set all-time records for their location. So McGilligan recorded its highest wind gust on record for that site, but also Northern Ireland, a new October record for Northern Ireland, which is quite impressive. So you can see here, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but all the ones on this graphic are basically the recorded their strongest gust of all time, not just October, but of all time, which is pretty crazy stuff. That just shows you how strong this storm actually was. A lot of tree damage around here, and even down towards Perthshire, for example. It looks as if there was a record strong gust in a few spots on the east coast of Scotland. Looks like there was a record wind gust there. You can see here, it looks as if Loch Liscarnock might have actually had, or one of the stations near there. I don't know if that is exactly Loch Liscarnock or it's one of the stations nearby, but you can see here that was, a record gust. So thank you very much to Lindsay for the kind donation. That is very kind. I appreciate that. Thanks to Lindsay for the donation. What is folks saying? Good afternoon to Will McKendry and his good lady. We've also got Richard Trott. Good afternoon to Richard. I hope you're enjoying your weekend, not working too hard, Richard. Still gusting 38.8 here and had 48 hours of 40 plus mile per hour gusts with a top gust of 67 miles per hour here in the afternoon. Kernwell had a 100 mile per hour gust at 10 a.m, which is still blowing hard over the tops for sure, Rich. And like I said, there was a gust of 36 mile per hour on Cairngorm, according to Highland Weather. And like I said, 115 gust at the Novar wind farm, which is approximately 4 miles up the hill from where we are located here. Unfortunately, the power went out and I wasn't in the house to be able to tell what the strongest wind gust was recorded here, which is unfortunate. I'm kind of gutted about that. I've got an EcoWet weather station, and I would love to know if you can go in and find out previous day gusts. You can only really, from what I can gather anyway, you can only get the gust from that current 24-hour period. But if somebody can let me know if there's a way of being able to go into the console and find out a gust from, say, a few days ago. But I can tell it does hourly rainfall. It tells you the daily rainfall, weekly rainfall, monthly, as well as yearly. So there's a part of me that thinks there must be a way of being able to find out on the console by pressing various buttons. You can get back a gust from the past, because I would imagine the strongest gust of 75 kilometers per hour, was the power went out, and that was the strongest gust that was recorded back then. Good job. I don't want to know the score, Rich. Rangers still 1 up. Yeah, pretty dire stuff at the moment by the famous RAFC. So let me just see here what else I can show with regards to this storm. We obviously had some interesting information shared by Dan Harris. Let me just see here. Right, let's move on then. We've mentioned about the Storm Amy. Very impressive stuff. Let me just have a quick check here. Lots of, I think there is still homes that are without power, it has to be said. This was some of the tree damage, by the way. Photograph here, the A884 blocked at Lochaline in Loch Aber. So that is quite a typical scene in rural areas of the Highlands due to Storm Amy. I had another interesting thing to show you right here. This is all the power cuts. That was from 9 hours ago. So the red areas are the areas that still remain without power. SSEN have set up hot food vans in several spots. Have you lost power and where? So yeah, still on this Sunday, many places without power. We are very fortunate that the power came back on at around 7:30 on Saturday morning. Sorry, this was the scene, by the way. This is a video here from Debbie Sinclair of the Oikel Bailey Bridge, probably the wrong pronunciation, after the storm last night. So you can see here that this road is completely blocked.
So somewhere under there is a road and a bridge.
I mean, we've seen a heck of a lot of rain over the past several days. If we look at the rainfall over the last 72 hours, according to the Meteosil website, let's have a quick look and see. This is the rainfall over the last 72 hours. Now, there is places there, by the way, that have received Richard saying here, you cannot generally receive data from the time you lost power with an EcoWet weather station because they do not support backfilling data from the cloud. Right, so thanks. I appreciate you answering that one, Rich. I'm just going to have to take it in the chin that I'm not going to find out what the strongest gust was. But the fact that Tain, just up the road, recorded 87, Loch Liscarnock, which we're pretty much almost between those two stations. Tain up the road's only about half an hour drive from here. 87 officially, according to the Met Office. 84 at Loch Liscarnock, equally about a 40-minute drive to the west of here. Perhaps get a backup rechargeable generator. Yeah, that would be quite a good idea, I must admit, Rich. So, like I said, this is the past 72-hour rainfall according to Meteosil. Lots of flooding. I noticed before the darkness set in on Friday night, there was a lot of water in the fields due to the amount of rain that has fallen over the past several days. It's been a very wet start to the month of October, for sure. This is the past 3-day temperature anomalies, by the way, of Meteosil, and I don't know why I said Meteosil. No, it's weatherbell.com. You can see here an extremely warm past 3 days across the northern United States and into parts of Ontario in particular. Very warm across the majority of North America, if you notice, over the last 72 hours, with a cool area over the Carolinas and California. It's been quite cool. Nevada up into Oregon as well. But look at Eurasia and look at Africa. The past 3 days has been notably colder than average. And we've also seen some impressive cold up in Siberia. We're starting to see that snow cover expand. And it's off to the races when it comes to snow and cold in Siberia. Is that a sign of things to come? That will be the thing that we're going to continue to monitor. We've got 27 concurrent viewers at this moment. Be sure to hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. And hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a single penny. Over the past few days, there's been 3 days where there's been at least 2 videos that have been released on this channel. So lots of content being released on a daily basis. Sometimes, like I say, more than 1 video per day. So you're kind of spoilt for choice when it comes to content, not just looking at the UK and Ireland or Europe, but globally, as you well know. The big hint being the fact that we're talking about the global stuff today. New York State is very dry right now. Some rivers are low, says Paul James. Yeah, they've certainly had a very dry past month or two in the northeastern United States. Definitely that's been the case. And you can see here, if we look at Asia, and this is only the past 3 days, look at how cold it's been over southern portions of Russia into Kazakhstan. It's been very cold, but look at the Balkan region. That has been ridiculously cold. Very warm, it has to be said, across much of China, especially the east of China, into the Shanghai region, Taiwan, and then northeastern, so Inner Mongolia region of northeastern China. The Koreas and Japan has been very warm over the past 3 days, with record-breaking heat continuing here. But look at how contrasting northeastern China is with the majority of Kazakhstan, which is quite interesting. But let's zoom in on Europe then. We've seen slightly warmer than average across the UK, slightly across Ireland. But look at down here into parts of Bulgaria, Serbia, North Macedonia, into Bosnia-Herzegovina. Even Italy has been firmly colder than average. And if we look at this here video, this is from Reuters showing, or Reuters should I say, I think it's pronounced, several Balkan countries, including North Macedonia, Kosovo, Serbia, experienced unusually early snowfall accompanied with unseasonably low temperatures. So check out this video here from Reuters. This was the scene in parts of the Balkans. Early October snowfall in this part of the world. Beautiful, beautiful scenes, isn't it? So while on the same day we were getting hammered by Storm Amy, record low pressure and wind gusts, we're talking about record cold and snow in parts of the Balkan region here. So beautiful video and images coming out of this region. More images here. This is, of course, kind of higher elevation stuff. Look at the damage to the trees because of the weight of snow. Quite interesting stuff. Let me just see here what else I can show with regards to that. This was a tweet here by Maximiliano Herrera, extreme temperatures around the world. This was a bus station in Pristina, Kosovo, and you can see the snow on the ground here. And this was the scene from the Bulgarian capital, Sofia. Historic images of this wintry cold spell on this 3rd of October, a month which started in full wild mode with July-like heat, including Canada, East Asia and South Algeria. December-like conditions in the Balkan region. So pretty wild flips in terms of extremity in weather. That is not atypical in terms of extremes at this time of the year, when you've got building cold and then you've got obviously residual heat. Another one here, snow line dropped to 200 meters above sea level in a part of Serbia. At just 215 meters above sea level is reported snowfall at the moment. We are living through an historic cold event which will be remembered for generations to come and hard to replicate in a lifetime. So, yeah, you can see here very cold temperatures, especially in eastern portions of the continent. Like I say, record-breaking heat. Temperatures as high as 34 Celsius in the south of Japan here, with records for October being broken in Okinawa, which is down in the tropical south of Japan, and then Hokkaido all the way up in the far north of the country. Taiwan broke a record for hottest October day. Then we did see typhoons slamming into Taiwan, which is quite interesting. One of the hotbeds for tropical activity anywhere on the planet. The Philippines, Taiwan, and those group of islands in between are among the hardest hit places. There's one island there off the Philippines that has seen 25 Cat 5 typhoons, so super typhoons, high end, 25 in the last 84 years. I don't think there's anywhere on the planet that has been hit by so many Cat 5s than this region of the world. Pretty incredible stuff, and big contrast in temperature over Asia. Minimum temperatures as high as 27.6 in Pakistan, for example. While we're talking about some remarkable cold in parts of Russia, temperatures near minus 30 Celsius in recent times, by the way. You can see here the contrast across Iberia versus the Balkans. Temperatures as high as the 35.8 Celsius equals the July average maximum. So this was back a tweet from the 3rd of October versus a high in Serbia of only 4.2 Celsius, which would be slightly below average in January. So you've got July average temperatures over Iberia. You've got temperatures that are even slightly below the average in January in parts of Serbia. Incredible stuff, really. We've also seen big contrasts in air pressure as well, near 1040 millibars over Western Russia versus 1040s or 940s, sorry, in millibars within the center of Storm Amy. Remarkable heat across parts of the central United States. Temperatures nearly 100 degrees in South Dakota back on the 3rd of October as well. And that's shown very nicely when you look back at the temperature profile in terms of the anomalies versus the Balkan region and parts of Kazakhstan against what is taking place over the heart of North America. The Dakotas, Minnesota, being among the hottest places on the planet. Motherwell are actually beating Celtic, which is very interesting stuff. That is the gap then closing if it stays the way it is. And obviously Hearts getting that last minute winner yesterday, also very interesting. 2-2. It's level. So, yeah, let's have a look at the more extremes then. I'm going to talk about the Indian monsoon, which came to an end on the 30th of September. It was above average, which is quite interesting. Interesting how it matches the figure. Let's have a quick look at it then. It actually matches 2013. And one of the analogues for this upcoming winter season is 2013-14. And it's interesting how when you average the entire country of India, I believe there was somewhere in the region of just over 900 millimeters averaged out across the entire subcontinent region. So the monsoon of 2025 ended with above normal at 108% of average, the 6th year running trend of a deficit in the northeast of India. So it's been below average rainfall in northeast India, but as a whole, it was an impressive monsoon season. So it's interesting how this has been a drier region in the parts of northeast India and along the foothills of the Himalayas. But look at the central India and look at the northwest up towards Punjab. Both Punjab, takes in both India as well. There's a Punjab in India and there's also a Punjab in Pakistan, from, if memory serves me correct. We had one big break during the heart of August when with the MJO moving out of the region, but the MJO being in an active phase over the Indian Ocean has certainly helped enhance the rainfall over India through the monsoon season. Begins at the 1st of June, ends the 30th of September. And some of the numbers are pretty impressive. So you can see here, it was really, it was the wettest May on record for India. Then we've seen a very active period there through the month of June. Then we had a little bit of a dip. We had an active period again over the end of July. Then there was a big lull in the monsoon through the first 10 days or so, really from about the end of July through the first 10 days of August. Then we've seen an uptick, and there's generally been a trend of wet, the anomaly, a good 2 above average, really, from the 18th of August all the way through till the end of September. And I think there was one location that recorded over 6,000 millimetres of rain over that period. So interesting to see another robust Indian monsoon. This is total rainfall, by the way, over the last 90 days, which is what takes us to the 4th of October. That period began the early portions of June. You can see here some very significant rainfall totals in excess of 2,000 millimetres in parts of northern Philippines. The southeast of Asia, we had quite a wet past 90-day period. The Western Ghats region here, obviously you've got the mountains here just beside the Arabian Sea, obviously those southwesterly winds and the orographic influence. You get some very tremendous amounts of rainfall down that western side, on the lee side of the hills in western India. In terms of the anomaly compared to average over the last 90 days, then you can see all the kind of blue colours representing wetter than average. And you can see most areas over that period was wetter than average, including central and eastern China. There's a region here in east central China, as well as the south of China here, that was drier than average, but quite a large area of wetter than average across Asia. This is more information with regards to the stats from the Indian monsoon. I'm not going to go through too much detail here, but this is vagaries of the weather. Rajesh Kapadia's page. I think there's other folks that they run this page as well. So some fantastic information if you're interested in Indian weather. On to Siberia then. We are talking about enhanced snow in this part of the world. So this is snow cover across the northern hemisphere. This is of Rutgers Snow Lab. You can see here the reds represent below average snowfall for the date, and the purpley colours represent above average for the date. So through this time of the year, this is how it's looking in terms of average, and this is how it's looking in terms of actual snow on the ground. And you can see here pretty big area of northern Russia, especially central and eastern portions of the north, does have snow cover on the ground now, and we are seeing the temperatures reflect that. Back over the last 24 hours or so, we've seen a temperature in Verkhoyansk in Yakutia province of minus 27.2 Celsius. So the fourth consecutive minimum below 25, minus 25, something never seen in early October since records began in 1885. So that's an impressive cold that has developed over the far north of Asia. And, temperatures down to minus 20 in the famous cold spot of Oymyakon, the first minus 20 of the season. Now, if we look at weather obs, these are the current temperatures across the planet at this moment in time. And if you look at Asia, you've got big contrasts, obviously, at this time of the year now. We're starting to see the gradient grow with building cold over Russia. We're going to start to see the northeast monsoon winds coming around the Siberian high. That is going to drive a northeasterly wind, so that changes the rainfall distribution over South Asia. So we're going to start to see the change taking place as we build that Siberian high. Does that high over Siberia with the stronger than average cold that we're seeing at the moment, the greater expanse of snow cover. Will that have a frictional effect on the polar vortex going forward? That is something that we're going to be talking about, by the way, in the upcoming week. So all the reason to subscribe to the channel, because we're going to look at that in quite a bit of detail coming up. Yep, stay tuned for that. This is snow depth, according to this site that we have at the moment, and I don't know 100% how accurate this is, because it looks as if there's a greater coverage of snow than perhaps there is. I don't know, but certainly interesting to see these figures here. So these are stations across Siberia that are reporting snow on the ground, and if then we click on to the minimum temperatures, you can see here there's that minus 27 in Verkhoyansk, and when we've got minimum temperatures into the upper 20s in parts of Eastern Asia, then you're talking about minus upper 20s in Russia. That is quite the contrast, and then of course we're going to start to get a stronger jet stream exiting Asia as a consequence of that. We've been seeing some significant low pressure systems moving up into the northwest of North America in recent times. It'll be interesting to see if we can start to see a wavier jet developing mid to late October. I did make mention in a message to Lee at the Highland Weather just earlier on that we could be seeing some sort of a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation developing as we move towards the back half of October. So could we see something colder? It looks as if some of the models were hinting at colder coming up next week. So there's lots of things going on at the moment here that is very much worth paying close attention to. So we've talked about the snow cover, we've talked about the building cold over Asia. Let me see if there's anything else that I can show that is of interest. Again, about that snow and cold in the Balkan region. Belgrade recorded a maximum temperature there the other day of only 8 Celsius. That is one of the coldest. That's the coolest 3rd of October maximum on record for the Serbian capital. So yet, despite the amount of warmth that we've been seeing across the Northern Hemisphere, we're up in terms of Arctic sea ice. We're actually one of the highest minimums in the last decade in the Arctic, despite having such a warm Northern Hemisphere over the past summer season. So quite interesting, actually. This was the scene, I did show it in a video yesterday, of the Black Rock Diving Tower in Salt Hill, Galway, when the strongest weather was moving through Ireland. So that was shared by Galway Aquarium. That was also from Weather Monitor on Twitter. So let me just see here. Some first snows now falling in Canmore, Alberta, Canada. It's been incredibly warm this past few weeks over Canada. It'll be interesting to see some cold building. So this is from Weather Monitor on Twitter. And Category 2 Typhoon Matmo moved into parts of China in the past couple of days. And we did see tremendous flooding associated with that, as well as strong winds. This was the scene here, by the way, from in Zhangyang City. Probably, again, wrong pronunciation, but there's a truck getting blown over. That's always my fear, driving in storms happening, especially when you drive a double-deck trailer as well. It doesn't help. I made sure that I was well loaded before hitting the road on Friday night. Again, West Bengal, India, we did have some disturbances in the west portion of the Arabian Sea, affecting perhaps Oman. So yeah, some nasty conditions, upwards of 20 deaths, unfortunately, in the West Bengal region of India over the past few days. So our thoughts are very much with the folks there. Again, scenes from parts of Guangdong province in China. So, yep, strong winds and flooding in this region of China. Frog's Legs Matthew is popping out. No problem, Matthew. Thanks for tuning in anyway, my friend, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Let me just see here what else I can show. This is more video of Matmo striking Guangdong, China. Look like some of the scenes that we had on Friday night into Saturday morning in parts of the UK, doesn't it? Yeah, this is a part of the world that just gets hammered by extreme weather for sure. Nasty conditions in eastern Nepal. 37 people killed and several missing due to landslides in the Lem district of eastern Nepal. So very sad scenes, it has to be said here. This was the scene in Taiwan. So remember, just a few days ago, the country recorded its hottest October temperature of 39 Celsius. Then we get systems coming in off the Pacific. Yep, all too familiar scenes coming out of this part of the world. We covered everything that I wanted to cover. That is the question here. Just bear with a second here, everybody. So in terms of the tropics then, we don't actually have any tropical systems at the moment, but we had a very active end to September, beginning of October. We had obviously Hurricane Umberto, and then we had Imelda. Both of those tropical systems within a 24-hour period affected the island of Bermuda, this tiny speck in the west portion of the open Atlantic. So we do have a disturbance, quite a large disturbance, that's quite far to the south here, with a 70% chance of development over the next 7 days. We have got an area, but it's a 0% chance over the northern Gulf. So relatively quiet. Do check out the tropical outlook that was released around 9:30 p.m. I think last night. So check that out if you're interested in doing that. My nephew's truck, this is from Richard, my nephew's truck went over a few years back. The BBC News reported him as dead at the scene. Thankfully, he is still very much alive. Yeah, and that is the real risk that we have as lorry drivers driving up and down in gale force winds. But unfortunately, you do have pressure from companies to continue to shift the goods. I certainly wouldn't take, if I didn't think the truck would stand on its wheels, I certainly wouldn't be taking the risk. I think Storm Aowen back in January was a little bit too close for comfort in terms of the strength of the wind. Pressure dropping into the low 940s millibars, very widespread damage, winds in excess of 100 miles an hour in southern Scotland. And I've driven in red warnings for wind, for rain, and also for snow during the Beast from the East back in 2018. So I do have my fair share of experience when it comes to extreme weather and red warnings, empty tricks, no and winds. And yeah, one of my colleague, I don't want to say too much, but my colleague was encouraged to drive down in an empty, but then essentially he was told not to. He was then told to go down solo, but he ended up not actually going down at all. The Aberdeen lads didn't go down on Friday night. I actually was essentially one of the only ones, probably the only idiot to drive down on Friday night. I didn't actually feel overly concerned, I must admit. There is a region around about Dalwhinnie that can be, it's a very exposed open area, and that can be probably one of the scariest parts. There's going over the Findhorn Bridge, which is not that far south of the Slough summit, and maybe about 25 miles south of Inverness. There's a Findhorn Bridge. You're quite high up. You're also quite exposed. It's very open. Winds can really catch you there. But once I got down past a certain bit, it wasn't quite so bad. But even driving back up, the winds were beginning to die down quite a bit. And it was pretty uneventful, if I'm being completely honest, driving the other night. Injuries you can recover from, but you only have one life, says Paul. Very, very true, my friend. Very, very true indeed. Imagine that happening here in the south. Laugh out loud. Listen, I have memories of the 1987 storm. Believe it or not, yes, I was only 4 years of age, but I can remember that storm, and I have always put that as one of the catalysts to why I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm using it anyway. One of the catalysts behind the reason why I love and I'm passionate about weather today is due to that experience. This is an article, by the way, I started back several years ago on my website, UK and Ireland's worst windstorms from 1987, so I can remember that, to 2023. So I have to update this, but this is basically looking back at all the major storms that have hit the UK and Ireland between 87 and up until 2023. So I'm going to try and update that over the next wee while to the current period. So you can check that out if you're interested in looking back at past storms. Some of those ones in there were quite spectacular, I must admit. So let me just see here in terms of what is taking place at the moment. Then let's have a quick look at the current temperatures across the UK, and we are on the cool side ish. So we're only talking about 10 and 11 Celsius. That wind, by the way, yesterday felt pretty cold, I must admit, with that northwesterly on the backside of Amy. But yeah, coolish across the north. Something slightly milder the further south you go, 15, 16, 17 Celsius it looks like across southern portions of England. Wales, 15, 16. Ireland, you're generally talking between 14 in the south, 15 I suppose on the south coast, 12 to 14 in the north. So relatively uniform temperatures with that little bit of cooler conditions across the far north. In terms of what does it feel like out there then? And it feels like this here, so not too bad. The winds are lower, so it doesn't feel just as cold. Maybe up in the tops, feeling closer to freezing with an air temperature of 6 Celsius at Loch Lascarnock, for example. Let's have a quick look then at the temperatures across Europe. And this is how it's looking. So we're starting to lose that chill down in the Balkan region of Europe. Still holding on to upper 20s, low 30s in Iberia, as you can see here. Looking at the current visible satellite then. Well, this is radar first. You can see here, largely dry across the UK and Ireland here. We've got wetter weather moving into parts of the Low Countries into Germany. Quite a wet, soggy day here in much of Germany. In fact, southern portions of Denmark, cloudy conditions, wet conditions in many places, coastal portions of Norway, and then we've got some wet weather over Finland, northern Scandi, and then some quite wet weather down into the Balkan region still, if you notice here. Let's have a quick look then at the visible satellite and see what it's looking like. So there is the remnants of Amy now moving through the south of Norway. Still got northerly winds here, cold winds at that. Then we've got the next system moving into the northern half of the UK here. So essentially we're going to start to build high pressure as we progress through this upcoming week. You can see here pretty grey across the majority of the UK. Look at those gravity waves crossing over the mountains here as the clouds and the wind bounces over the upland areas of Scotland and northern England here. Pretty cool to see that, actually. It's got some breaks in the West Midlands down into the southwest of the UK. Very cloudy conditions over Ireland and Northern Ireland at this moment in time. So, is there anything else I can show? So anybody else can think of anything that they want to ask before we close off? Let's go back and check out the beginning of October, how the temperature normally is looking so far from a global perspective. And like I say, we're going to be talking about winter stuff. We're going to be talking about the possibility of some blocking during the middle and second half of this month. So this is the month so far, very warm across particularly central North America with a little bit of cool east and west coast. Very cool across the majority, away from Mongolia and eastern China. Much of Eurasia is actually colder than average, and also Africa, which is quite interesting. Down in Australia, we did see some very warm temperatures, one of the warmest October days or maybe September days. Let me just see here. Back to extreme temperature around the world. And there was some impressive heat. So we've obviously had some impressive heat over parts of eastern China. Record monthly temperatures were set. But down under in Australia, we were talking about some record temperatures. So we did see exceptional temperatures despite being the first days of October. Temperatures already close to records for October in parts of Australia. And Max says in the next few days, Western Australia might reach 44 Celsius for the first in the of the season down in Australia. So back on the 3rd or the 2nd of October, very hot day in eastern Queensland. Rockhampton saw an extraordinary 39 Celsius. Its 4th hottest October day in 86 years of records. Earliest 39 on record by 6 days. So some pretty impressive heat down in Australia. Obviously we're into the second spring month down under, which is so we're getting close to the hot season. It'll be interesting to see how wet it is given the La Nina and the negative IOD. What kind of wet summer may come down here. We did see temperatures at Wyndham Airport of 42.9 Celsius. So if verified, this would be the second hottest September day ever recorded in the whole of Australia, only 0.2 below the national record set in 2003, which is quite interesting. So let me just see here. So we do currently have 30 concurrent viewers. Be sure to hit that like button, folks. It would be greatly appreciated. And also hit that subscribe button. Lots of interesting things coming up in the week ahead. Let's just very quickly then end by looking at the ECMWF. Very quick look at the 850 temperatures actually, because is it showing anything significantly chilly coming up? I've not looked at the charts in the last few days, that has to be said. But you can see here we've got this westerly flow, high pressure south, low pressure to the north, systems riding around the top of that high. Look at the high then starting to build in. This is next weekend, but as we progress through the course of the week, we will see higher pressure building in over the UK. So we've got some relatively milder. It's deflecting the cold to the east of the UK and Ireland. But you can see here there is a bit of a flirt with something coming out of the northeast. But this is all the way out to Wednesday the 15th of October. So still a long way out, but I am kind of hinting now that there's something colder coming in towards the middle and second half of this month. So look at this here. High pressure to the north. Colder trying to wrap underneath and towards the UK and Ireland. Let's just watch the trend in that coming up. I do apologise if I'm not reading everybody's comment. It can be a wee bit difficult. That I know Richard's been writing some interesting stuff as well as Paul and other folks here. So I do apologise. Storm Arwen, November 21, I have just checked, says Rich. Remember the 1990 storm ripped part of the canopy off Swindon Station. Platform 3 was travelling back from work when it happened, says Paul Farwell. Celtic now winning 3-2. And Rangers being held. See, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a draw out of that, Richard. And perhaps it's the it's the final straw for our friend Russell Martin. Certainly don't condone the amount of abuse that guy's been getting. It's a bit on the personal side, it has to be said. Keep your criticism to a professional level is what I say, but it looks as if it's went beyond that. But yeah, let me just round things up. So higher pressure, more settled conditions building as we go through the upcoming week. We've got 20 concurrent viewers. Before you leave today's stream, please hit that like button if you so wish. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I think we're going to have pork chops, gravy and tatties for our dinner. I don't know what everybody else is having on this Sunday evening. Stay safe. Thanks for taking part in today's stream. I do greatly appreciate that. We'll be back at the usual time, 4 p.m. next Sunday. But lots of content, at least one video per day, sometimes two. So stay tuned for all the content that will be available this upcoming week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time with more. Bye-bye.